Okay, here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8. Real YouTubers. Have a shower. I had a shower before recording today. Okay. Woodio Man here. It's your boy, Mr. Woodio. So today we're going to be talking about something that I think is interesting. I gave a lot of thought to this topic before I decided to record. And the issue is that it's just a difficult topic. However, before we get into it, I do want to say, please subscribe, please like the video, and please leave a comment telling me what you like or didn't like about the video. Because that'd be cool. Yeah. Anyway, also don't tell me about my laundry. I'm very aware that it's a problem. You can actually visually see how much of a problem it is. I know it's a problem because, like, I wear... This might be TMI, but I wear like, the loose boxers, right? And when I start getting into, like, the compression short, or, like, the briefs, or like, the elasticy ones that are really tight. Yeah, when I get into those, like, because I'm out of the regular ones, that's when I know I'm in, like, danger zone for laundry. So, yeah, you can guess which zone we're in now. Anyway, okay, so, today we're going to be talking about things that I think should be fixed or changed in Pokemon. It's a difficult topic. I asked about this topic on Twitter. It had, I think, let me actually check, because I'm genuinely curious. I want to say over 1,000 responses, but I don't want to lie to you people, so, 500 responses. Okay, that's different, but that's still quite a few responses. I tried to read all of them. When I asked about this question, I didn't make it clear. I was talking specifically about competitive Pokemon. I wasn't talking about, like, in-game stuff. However, I kind of want to do a separate video on in-game stuff because, like, yeah, there's a lot of good suggestions that people had. It's just, like, wasn't what I was looking for with this video. Although I have included one because I think it's important for competitive play, but, yeah. So, anyway, so that being said, I just have a list. This is a little unorganized, but I did write everything down. So I'm just gonna kind of go through. I'm gonna start with things that I feel more confident about, things that I thought of myself, and then go into things that other people suggested. Yeah. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about here is paralysis. So paralysis was a big problem as a status condition back in Generation 5. And it got nerfed pretty hard in Generation 7. So Generation 5, Generation 6, paralysis was kind of broken, and then in Generation 7, it gets a big nerf. The way that they nerfed it is, first of all, they made Thunder Wave only 90% accurate, and second of all, they made it so that instead of quartering speed, aka making speed 1/4 of what it is originally, it only halves it, meaning that paralysis is less effective as a form of speed control. Yeah, that's the main thing. However, the real issue with paralysis was never the speed control. The speed control was nice, paralyzing a Pokemon and then having it be, like, slower than, like, almost, you know, most of your Pokemon most of the time, apart from any, like, Trick Room or, like, you know, anything, like, boosted or whatever, but, the problem was never really the speed. The problem is the inability to move. When you have paralysis, you have, you know, potential for a Pokemon to not be able to move, like, many turns that it's on the field, and it's not a very competitive mechanic, because, like, you're rolling a 1 in 4 die every time you want to attack, and there are, like, ways of dealing with paralysis. However, yeah, like, sometimes your Pokemon's gonna get paralyzed and you can't, like, do anything about that, or, you know, sometimes your opponent will use Bounce and your Pokemon will get paralyzed or something like that. So you can't do that much about being paralyzed sometimes, and yeah, the inability to move, like, it's uncompetitive, and it's especially uncompetitive in a format with Dynamax where, like, it's possible, and where, like, you lose, you know, even losing 1 turn of your Dynamax to a paralysis is pretty bad, I think. However, yeah, like, you could, in theory, lose 2 or 3 turns, and so, yeah, like, I don't know. I don't like the inability to move percentage on paralysis, so if it were up to me, the first thing I would do with Pokemon is I would remove the inability to move, and I would probably give speed back, or give paralysis back to 1/4. Have it be used as like a very strong speed control option that doesn't have an inability to move. I also would be okay if they lowered it to, like, 10% chance of being unable to move, though frankly I'd rather they just remove it altogether, personally, because at 10%, then, like, it's like you don't use it because you want them to be unable to move, which you can do right now. Like, if I have a Nuzzle Pokemon, I'm 100% clicking Nuzzle and everything just to try and, like, give me better odds. Because, yeah, it's like an investment, right? You get a Nuzzle off, and then your opponent doesn't move once. That's already, like, kind of worthwhile if your Pokemon, depending on the Pokemon, like, if it's Raichu or Togedemaru, and if they, you know, if you get multiple ones off, it could be a really good investment. So, yeah. Yeah, that's what I would do with paralysis. Make it stronger by making the speed 1/4 again, because right now, if you get paralyzed, you can just counter it with Talent or a +2 boost or something. And even at -2, like, you'll still outspeed Pokemon, which is interesting. However, if it's 1/4, paralysis becomes viable as like a speed control option. However, yeah, without the unable to move chance, like, I think that would be better. Okay. Second mechanic that I think needs to be changed or, well, removed is freeze. Freeze is an extremely uncompetitive mechanic. The way that it works is certain ice type moves have, I don't think anything goes above 10% chance of freezing you. If you get frozen, you are unable to use any attacks indefinitely until you thaw, which can be done one of two ways. The first is getting a 20% chance every time you want to move. The second is getting hit with certain moves. Like, I think any fire move will thaw you, and then if you get hit by Scald, it will thaw you, and then if you use certain moves, not any fire move, but some fire moves will thaw you. Like, I think Heat Wave does not thaw you, which has always tilted me. Because, like, your Heatran will get frozen, and, you know, some fire moves will thaw. Like, I think Overheat will thaw, Scald will thaw, but, like, Heat Wave won't, I think. So, okay. Freeze should be removed. It's a terrible mechanic. Like, nobody uses freeze. Like, there's no freeze strategy, right? Like, you can click Blizzard, I guess. Like, and you'd be like, okay, the odds are in my favor, but there's no strategy centering around freeze like there is around any of the other status conditions, except for maybe poison, although even poison is strategies, albeit they're bad. Yeah. So, like, there's no... Actually, no, there have been years. 2017 Toxic was actually good. So, yeah, take it back. Poison has been good before. Yeah. Every other status condition, even Confusion. Like, Confusion was good for a long time. It's still good right now because of Hatterene. Paralysis, we talked about, is very good. Burn, Scald, and Will-O-Wisp are amazing moves. One of the best status conditions. Sleep is probably the best status condition, apart from Freeze. And then, I think I missed one. But, yeah, they're all good except for Freeze, which is broken. But you don't ever go for... Like, you don't ever, like... building your team being like, okay, this is a freeze team, right? Or like, this Pokemon is like a freeze Pokemon, right? In a different way than you'd be like, okay, this Pokemon burns Pokemon, or this Pokemon sleeps Pokemon. It's no, you're not like this Pokemon freezes Pokemon, because the only moves that do it are like Ice Beam, Blizzard, a couple like Freeze Dry, a couple ice moves, and they're all about 10%, I think, chance of activating. And so it's a super uncompetitive mechanic. The fact that you can stay frozen indefinitely, pretty terrible if you're gonna ask me. Like, why? Like, there's no, even with sleep, right? And sleep is also a bad mechanic, and I'm going to talk about that. But with sleep, you can say, okay, I have a 1/3 chance for sleeping for 1 turn, 2 turns, or 3 turns, right? So even if I've already slept for 3 turns, I can at least, or if I've slept for, 1 turn, I know that I have a 50% chance, or if I've slept for 2 turns, I have a 50% chance to wake up on the 3rd, and a 50% chance to sleep for 1 more. So I can at least plan around that, right? And if I've already slept for 3 turns, I can again say, okay, I know I'm waking up with the next attack as a fact. Freeze doesn't have anything like that. Like, Freeze is just, why is it in the game? It's so bad. Like, you can just stay frozen for 10 or 11 turns, and there's nothing you can do. Yeah, it's a super uncompetitive mechanic that doesn't add any kind of depth or interest, like anything interesting to the game. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's super bad. Speaking of like things like that don't add depth or interesting things to the game, I'm going to talk about critical hits, but I actually don't think they should change critical hits. I think they're probably pretty solid right now. Personally, I know a lot of people are surprised by that. Critical hits got slightly nerfed in Generation 7 when they went down from about 6% to about 4% chance of happening. So they are pretty rare. The reason why I think they need crits in the game is because, like, certain defensive strategies where you have a setup Pokemon are inherently weak to critical hits, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think it'd be good for the game if you had Pokemon that could just boost it, like stockpile, 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 and then, like, rest to win the game. And although we have a timer for that, I think it's still good to have, like, another countermeasure in gameplay itself so that you're not encouraging people to, like, when you see, like, a Chansey team or whatever, just take them to timer. Although that is the counterplay, but whatever. Yeah. But, yeah, so I think that having crits in the game is actually pretty good. Like, I don't love the randomness of it, I'll be completely honest, but, and I don't love the, yeah, like, the kind of uncontrollableness of it, but... Yeah, I'd be okay. I'd be like open to like maybe having crits only work, like crits increase as you raise defensive stats or something. But then you just totally make defensive stats unviable. So I don't know, or strategies unviable. So yeah, it's kind of tricky. I don't mind it as it is now. It could probably be fixed a little bit. But yeah, overall, I don't mind it. I think it's good to have like an anti-stat boost mechanic, because stat boosting can be really strong, and critical hits are they're actually a pretty good like counter mechanic. And even though of course like you might be saying, how is this different than Freeze? Because it's not like, okay, well, there are crit Pokemon, there are crit teams, but, okay, setting that aside, how is it different than Freeze? Because most of the time, for what you're talking about, Wolf, you're not really counting on, like, it's the random crits, it's not the planned crits, right? And the difference is that with the situation that I'm talking about, where you have a Pokemon who's set up at, like, boosting its defenses and is, like, recovering and just healing and stalling, even though the odds of any individual turn are only like a 4% chance to crit per Pokemon, when you think about it in a bigger scale, like if your opponent spends 5 turns or 5 or 6 or 7 turns, like they have to take that to set up and then like start, you know, stalling you out with like Seismic Toss or whatever, the odds are in your favor because every single turn you have a chance to get a critical hit. So like even though on the individual turn the odds are low, it's different than freeze because in the grand scheme of things against these types of strategies, you have a chance to crit. Like you can crit through Iron Defense Ferrothorn. You can crit through, because you know it's not going to do well. Iron Defense Ferrothorn can do damage because of body press, but that's not really my point. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, I don't mind critical hits, and I think it's okay that they're in the game, personally. I'd be open to talking about how to change them, but, yeah, I don't mind them right now. Actually, I just want to make sure Justin had some really good suggestions. I want to make sure I don't miss any of his. I think I already had everything he suggested. Let me see. He wants Chris changed. Sorry, I just want to check something. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Pretty much everything right here already. Okay, next up, Rock Slide. So, Rock Slide is a move that is kind of notorious in VGC because we meme about it, you know. We meme about Rock Slide. However, it's actually, like, kind of stupid. Basically, it's a 75 pace power move that hits both. For those of you who don't know, I've talked about this before, but there is a spread reduction on multi-target moves in doubles. So basically, it's only a 56 base power move on both Pokemon, right? It's not especially strong when it comes to like moves. It's 56 base power because it gets a reduction because it hits both targets. It doesn't sound super scary on principle. It's only 90% accurate, which means it misses when it's supposed to hit. But the really bad thing about Rock Slide is that it's a 30% chance to flinch. And if you have if you hit Rock Slide on both targets, you have a 0.7 times or 1 minus 0.7 times 0.7 chance of not getting a flinch. It's effectively a 51% chance, I think, to not get a flinch and 49% chance to get a flinch. So effectively a 50% chance to flinch one of their Pokemon. Flinch is a stupid mechanic. I'm going to be honest. I like it. Obviously, I kind of won Worlds abusing flinch mechanics in part with double fake out. However, yeah, flinch is a really, 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 really strong mechanic. And I don't hate it when it comes to fake out because there's a set condition, right? Fake out's like, okay, I can only use this move on the first turn, which is, in my opinion, a great way to balance the move. Because there's counterplay to that. You can protect, and they probably realized that Fake Out was super strong, so they added Dynamax as well, which is one of the greatest counters to Fake Out. So now Fake Out doesn't feel as strong anymore, at all, which is pretty huge, in my opinion, personally. However, there are other moves that can flinch, and although they're not like as notorious, like Dark Pulse will come into play, Iron Head will come into play, Air Slash will come into play, but the really big one is Rock Slide, because any Rock Slide user has a 50% chance if it hits both targets to flinch one of their Pokemon. And flinch, removing a turn from Pokemon is like very, very, very scary. And when you add into like formats like 2015 or 2013 where we had Thundurus who could Thunder Wave and Swagger and Rock Slide, obviously they've, weakened those mechanics a little bit. However, yeah, like Thunder Wave, like Paralysis plus Rock Slide still has a very, like, if you get paralyzed and hit by Rock Slide, you have a, wait, let me see, 75 chance to move times a 0.7. Yeah, it's like the same thing. If you can have a 50% chance to move, if you get hit with Thunder Wave and Rock Slide. And there are other multipliers as well that make it worse. So, yeah, overall, I just think Rock Slide is, like, not competitive. It's a move with no drawbacks, basically, and it gives you the ability to win games you have no business winning, which I don't personally like in mechanics. So for that reason, I think the flinch chance should be lowered or removed. I would be okay going down to 20%. That changes the odds a lot. Rather than a 50% chance of flinching both Pokemon, or flinching one Pokemon, you only have a 36% chance, so that already decreases it. When I started VGC my whole first year, when I won regionals, nationals, and got top 8 at Worlds, I thought Rock Slide flinch was 10%. I also thought stab was 0.4. I also called it STAB because I didn't realize it was called stab, but those are just little fun facts. But yeah, I think flinch chance should be removed. Probably not removed, honestly, but lowered, 20 or 10%. I think would be more reasonable on Rock Slide, so yep, that's all I have to say about that. The next one I'm really not sure about, but I wanted to talk about. We're going to talk about Dynamax, because I don't personally have a problem with Dynamax, but something that I think could be interesting. And to be clear, the first ones I feel like I'm confident that would be good for the game. This next one I'm not so sure. But something that I think would be interesting is if when you Dynamax, you just didn't have a held item. The reason is that there's some, like, and I'll probably make another video on this as well, but like, There's a couple really potent held items that are on Dynamax Pokemon. Yeah, like for example, Life Orb gives you a 1.3 to 1.2, 1.3 times boost on all of your moves, and you only lose 5% of your health, which is a huge like trade-off. And yeah, it makes some Pokemon extremely powerful, like Primarina. Pretty much any Life Orb Dynamax Pokemon is going to do insane damage. Dragapult, yeah, so it does a lot of damage. The other main item is Weakness Policy, like being able to Dynamax and then have Weakness Policy activate. I don't personally hate this because I think there's a lot of counterplay, especially since we're in a format with Haze Dusclops and stuff. But yeah, I don't hate Weakness Policy and Dynamax, but I know a lot of people do. And so for that reason, I think it'd be interesting if you lost your item when you're Dynamax. Basically, like it would force, because they already removed choice items, right? It would force a situation where like there's a drawback to Dynamaxing, which I personally think is interesting, right? Like, yeah, like in a lot of situations, like there's no drawback to Dynamaxing, right? So you can kind of just click the button and be like, wee, you know? But if there was a drawback, I think it'd be interesting, right? Like maybe like a Pokemon that has Draco Meteor will actually hit harder on Dynamax than it will Dynamaxed. If it has Life Orb, excuse me. So like, yeah, moves, and like a lot of Pokemon with high base power moves might hit harder with Life Orb or something, or if you want to activate Weakness Policy, you have to do it before Dynamaxing. So I think it create like some really interesting scenarios. Personally, like, I don't know, I just think it could be interesting. I'm not positive it would be good, so I do want to have that disclaimer that like that's like not something that I'm confident in, but I think it could be interesting at the very least. Next up, this is something that I thought of, and then I saw Justin said the same thing, so I knew it was a good idea. Ally Switch should not be able to be used consecutively safely. It should work like Protect. If you use Ally Switch and then you try to use Ally Switch again, it should fail 2/3 of the time at least, or it should fail altogether. Because the thing about Ally Switch is, okay, it's a stupid move. I'm not telling you to remove the move, although I wouldn't be complaining if you did. It doesn't, like, I don't know. I don't personally like dealing with Ally Switch, but I can see how you could argue that it adds something interesting to the game, right? And yeah, maybe like, although it just creates like chaos and volatility, like it forces you into a mind game with your opponent, and if you think you can win that mind game, like, I mean, I brought Ally Switch to regionals, right? Like, it didn't help me very much because I don't think I'm great at using it, but yeah, basically it's a no drawback move that forces you to continuously play 50-50s with your opponent, or maybe not 50-50s, but mind games with your opponent, where they have to guess whether or not you're going to click the Ally Switch button. And yeah, the thing is, it's very frustrating to deal with if you call it wrong repeatedly, like I tend to do. And it's not a super like competitive mechanic, because like basically it says, okay, like sure, maybe you can cover everything, but if you can't cover everything, which is the more likely scenario, then you're going to be put in a situation where it's just like a guessing game of, is he going to click Ally Switch or not, you know? Yeah. So for that reason, I think that a nerf would be good on it. Not telling you to remove the move, but saying that if you use it consecutively, then like there's a chance it will fail. And that would at least create some interesting play where like you can, like, for example, once your opponent reveals Ally Switch, they might get you for one turn, but then you know that they can't do it again the next turn safely. And so yeah, that gives you an out to like play, like, yeah, to attack into a Pokemon that like, or to attack as if they're not going to Ally Switch, and I think that would be helpful. Whew, okay, how's everyone doing? We're kind of schmoving over here. I'm halfway through my list, though. Some of these I'm not going to talk about in depth. So, okay. The next one's really quick. Let's just talk about it. This is the one in-game thing that I want to talk about. Rusty Bottle Caps. Basically, the ability to set an IV to 0, or even better, to set your IV to anything, I think would be good. I think it'd be interesting to, like, yeah, have Bottle Caps be super common and then have it, like, raise or lower an IV rather than just, like, setting it to 31. The reason is that for a lot of Pokemon to be viable, you need 0 stats. Almost every Pokemon should have a 0 stat, or like could have a 0 stat at the very least. Any physical attacker and any trick room attacker should have a low attack IV. Any physical attacker should have, any special attacker should have a low physical attack IV to be optimal. Any trick room Pokemon should have maybe not a 0 speed IV, but like a low one. Like I know, like sometimes, especially on trick room teams, you'll run like somewhere between 0 and like 17 or 18. As an IV. It's just like a general rule. It depends on the Pokemon for like what specific stat you're trying to hit, but a lot of times, yeah, you do run these low IVs on your Pokemon, and there's no current way to do that in game. So I do just want to mention that I think that would be really good for the game. Like, yeah, if we can have 31 IVs, like we should have a way to lower IVs as well, because yeah, it's important and it makes things a drag. Okay. Next up, let's talk about sleep. Sleep is not a good mechanic, in my opinion, especially in a Dynamax format, where, you know, those 3 turns are so important, and sleep is like the ultimate counter. I hate sleep. I've always hated sleep. All my homies hate sleep. I don't know exactly how to fix it. You could do what Temtem did and say, okay, you can sleep for like 2 turns, or you're guaranteed to sleep for 2 turns, but if you get hit, you wake up. That would maybe nerf sleep too much, in my opinion. Because, yeah, like, you could decide to attack your partner. Although, I don't know, maybe it'd be interesting. Maybe that'd be worth it. I don't know. I think the waking up when getting hit is an interesting idea. Maybe it only works when your opponents attack you. I don't know. Because that would give you some good counterplay. Like, if you switched in and got something put to sleep, you could save it as, like, a switch in later and guaranteed wake up and then have your, like, Pokemon usable. I also wouldn't mind if they kind of messed with the percentages of sleep. Say, like, a 50% chance to wake up turn 1, and then, like, a 30% chance to wake up turn 2, and then a 20% chance to wake up turn 3. Or, like, 50, 40, 10, for example. Maybe too much. But, you know, just, like, something. Just something to weaken it a little bit, because I think right now it's too broken. It's always been a broken mechanic. It's already been nerfed once. Yeah. Once to twice, depending on how you, like, want to think about it. Originally, or maybe even 3 times, because the sleep turns were changed in Generation 6, I think, and they were changed in Generation 5 as well. Like, you used to be able to sleep for, like, 4 or 5 turns, and it used to be that, like, if you switched out, your sleep counter was reset, which was insane. So, like, in the finals of regionals, my first ever tournament, I had my Hydreigon, who got to put to sleep. I slept for 3 turns. I switched out, I came back in, and my sleep counter, like, my sleep timer was reset. So I had to sleep for 3 more turns, because, like, it was, like, how long the Pokemon slept was set when you fell asleep, and then, like, if you switched out, all the time turns you spent in were, like, reset. So, yeah, there was that, and then also Grass types are now immune to Powder moves, which are the main sleep moves, though not the only ones. Also, they nerfed Dark Void. So, like, they've been weakening sleep, but it's still too strong, in my opinion, so, yeah. And they also added Electric and Misty Terrain, I think, in part to stop sleep as well, but it's still too strong, so more nerfs, Game Freak. Please, more nerfs. Yeah. Next one's a quick one. This is just personal preference. I totally understand why they wouldn't want to do this, and I don't think it will ever be added, but personally, I'd like a cancel button in competitive, so you can cancel your moves and change your mind. This is just because I'm an impatient guy, and actually, you know what, I don't think they should add this. Like, I want it because I always click the move and then think of a better move, which is stupid of me, and that's a me problem, but, like, yeah, like, the real problem with this is that you could, like, in theory, lock in a move. Oh, actually be risky, maybe not. I was thinking you could lock in a move and then, like, wait and think about what you actually wanted to do and then cancel, and then, like, do the actual move to conserve time. However, like, if your opponent locks in too early, then the turn would just start, so you wouldn't be able to cancel. So, I don't know. I would like to see a cancel button. I don't think they'll ever add it. But I would like it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, next up. Someone suggested a physical assault vest. I think that could be cool. I don't know how good it would be. It would probably be pretty good. Yeah, it's just kind of weird for me to think about, to conceptualize, because we don't have it. But yeah, basically the last thing I want to talk about is typings. A couple types need balance. I posted yesterday, from when I'm recording this, a typing tier list video, and it's pretty clear, I think, that some types are much, much, much better than others. The worst type, in my opinion, is Bug. So I think I'd like to see Bug get a couple buffs. For example, I think Bug should be super effective on Fairy, and it should resist Fairy as well. I think that would be really good. And among other things, I think Ice needs a lot of buffs. Ice only has 1 resistance right now. I think Ice should maybe resist Water. You could argue it would resist Flying. You could argue it could. You could, in theory, make Ice resistant to Fairy and Fairy weak to Ice. I saw a couple people, like a couple different people, suggest that. I don't know how much that makes sense, but, like, Ice needs to be fixed in some way. Yeah, I think Ice should be, like, Ice should probably resist Water at the very least. And I don't know if Ice should be not very effective on Water either. I think I'd change both of those. The thing is that Ice is a very bad defensive type, so I think the way that you'd buff Ice is just to give it more resistances, so there's just not, like, this glass cannon type of type. So yeah, I think more resistances would be really nice. It would also really buff Pokemon like Mamoswine, who is already a good Pokemon, and then, yeah, could actually benefit from the Ice typing defensively as well as offensively. I also think that, like, maybe Ice types should get a buff in Hail. I think that would be interesting. Some people suggested, like, giving Hail, like, giving all Ice type Pokemon an Ice Body effect. I kind of like the idea that you give your Ice type Pokemon a physical defense boost, as opposed to the Rock types who get a special defense type boost in Sandstorm, because, like, they're clearly counterparts, Sand and Hail, and, like, Rock types get a special defense boost, and it makes sense that Ice types get a physical defense boost, at least to me. So, yeah, I think that buffing Ice types would be pretty nice, personally. Yeah, I also think Poison types should be buffed in some way, but that one's a little bit more unclear for me. But yeah, I think slight weaknesses to Fairy, like, and then yeah, buffing Ice and Bug at the very least, maybe Poison as well. I think that would be really good personally. Yeah, and Fairy should probably be weakened, but that goes in with typing. And actually, I just looked, and that's my whole list. So I guess the last thing is that something that Justin mentioned that I agree with is that more abilities and moves that ignore redirection. Redirection is kind of broken in doubles. So yeah, I think that, like, maybe having more, like, Duraludon is a great idea. I'm gonna be honest. I think maybe adding an item that ignores redirection could be really interesting. It would severely weaken the ability of redirectors to, like, come in and dominate the metagame. So yeah, I think that could be interesting. They added safety goggles, which lets us ignore Rage Powder. However, I wouldn't mind an item that just, like, allows us to ignore Follow Me. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you want to see changed about Pokemon in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Peace.